And welcome back on Take Action News. This is Daniel Marins in for David Shuster in the host chair. How am I doing? That was the signature phrase of the iconic New York City Mayor Ed Koch. And unfortunately, that phrase will not be heard anymore by that man. He passed away this week at the age of 88 in his home in New York City. Ed Koch was the mayor of New York City from 1978 to 1989. He served 3 consecutive terms. He inherited a fiscal crisis in New York City when it was nearly going bankrupt, that the city had just nearly averted bankruptcy. He started a major housing program to encourage the ownership of homes, particularly to low and moderate middle-income people. That's something that he was known for. He started the city's first gay and lesbian health department, though he's been criticized for not doing enough for the AIDS plague. And, of course, towards the middle of the 80s, in his 3rd term, he inherited a corruption scandal in which many of his closest political allies were implicated. He ended up losing the Democratic nomination in 1988 to David Dinkins, who became the city's first black mayor at a time when many black groups in the city were feeling more and more marginalized. But in recent years, Ed Koch has taken on a national, if you will, profile. Ed Koch has become one of the premier spokesmen of the Jewish community in the United States, or a segment of the Jewish community that is extremely concerned about America's friendship and policy towards the state of Israel. In 2004, Ed Koch said he agreed with John Kerry, the Democratic nominee for president, on almost all issues, but he could not trust him on Israel, and that George W. Bush was such a good friend to the state of Israel that he insisted on voting for him. In fact, Ed Koch was an honorary chair of the Republican National Convention in New York City that year in 2004, and he spoke at the convention in favor of Bush. Now, whether or not that actually affected President Bush's performance among Jewish voters is another question. John Kerry won 76% of the American Jewish vote that year, despite losing to President Bush. But it did make him a key player, or seen to be a key surrogate on the issue of Israel and Palestinian politics. He ended up throwing his support to President Barack Obama in 2008 and again in 2012, but there was some talk in 2012 that he was concerned about President Obama's stance. He wasn't sure if he liked how President Obama was pressuring the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Those fears were allayed by a personal meeting with the president, and then he went out and campaigned specifically for President Obama, recording a 5-minute ad aimed at American Jewish voters to say, not only is this president okay on Israel, not only is he the best supporter for the state of Israel, but because we agree with him on all the other issues of social justice, of equality, of freedom to choose, of various social liberties, he is the right choice for the country. David Shuster, do you know anyone, obviously you and I, we are both members of the American Jewish community for whom Israel is an issue, albeit in my case, I personally believe that the United States government can play a very productive and constructive role for both the Palestinians and the Israeli state if we're willing to criticize the Israeli government, if we're willing to criticize our friends, just as we do the Palestinian Authority when we have things that we disagree with. Did Ed Koch ever change your mind?
You know what? I don't know if Ed Koch really ever changed my mind on Israel issues per se, or even Jewish issues. I mean, I think my mind is made up on a lot of that stuff. But where Ed Koch really sort of changed my mind is in terms of politics. That this was a guy who, he would challenge the transit workers during their strike by encouraging everybody to walk across the bridge with him. And he would talk about how, if you're going to get punched, you punch back. And it reminded me that, politicians, for all their color and bombacity, some of them really believe this stuff. Ed Koch was a true believer in what he was doing. He was also, of course, a true believer in himself. You mentioned that he would always say, "How am I doing?" even though Ed Koch thought that he was doing great. But I think passion in politics is a really good thing for our country, and it's good for our leaders, and it's good for our cities and towns. And that's the one thing that Ed Koch convinced me of in watching him when he was mayor, and then I think also over the last couple of years that passion and enthusiasm can go a really far way whether it's politics or anything else.